Welcome to week 3 of the 4-part series on overcoming the stress of decision making. In this week, I'll be speaking of how mindful awareness can help you to make decisions, small and large, and that by using your own ability to be aware and non-judging of what you are aware of in your own experience, you can gather a lot more relevant information to the decisions that you're trying to make. One of the hardest parts about making decisions is that usually we feel one way, think we should do it another way, and have a gut feeling that may seem to just complicate things, and we're not sure what to make of that, whether or not to trust it. So let me introduce myself. My name is Holly Anton, an integrative psychotherapist with Sutter's Institute for Health and Healing in Santa Rosa. I am introducing here some topics and recapping some topics that were covered in week 1 and 2, and we'll be foreshadowing some of the information that's coming in week 4. So I do hope you're able to listen to the series as a whole. And even if you can't, I hope this class will make it just a little bit easier. So one of the things that can make it difficult, as I said, is not knowing what to do with the competing or conflicting ways that you might feel about something. Now, I did say whether this is a small decision or a large decision, the same skills really are useful. Obviously, there's a lot more pressure, a lot more stress around decisions that have high consequence or where we sense a time pressure. Now, whether or not there actually is time pressure is something that I would like you to consider first, and whether or not the stakes are as high as you may feel they are or think they are, given that, thank goodness, most decisions can be course corrected. That is, once you make a decision and see how things start to play out, what happens in response to the decision, many times you're able to make more decisions about how to redirect the course of things so that it is heading more in the direction that you really wanted. Now, in this class, I'd like to bring your attention to the 3 ways of knowing. Now, are these the only ways of knowing? No, of course, there are many ways and many sources that you can consult for gathering information and for gathering intuitions about decisions. But in body-based terms, I find this a useful way of breaking down these complications of feeling, thinking, and having gut senses that don't always point in the same direction, or at least seem not to. How mindful awareness comes into play here is that I'll suggest that you pay attention to your body in a certain kind of way. If you would like to work with a decision, small or large, that you are either making currently, have made and wish you would have done that differently, or are facing a decision that you still must make. If you would like to work with a real decision that you are looking at, it is okay to pause this class and come back to it after you get some paper and a pen, or open up a word processing doc. Because I think putting your decision into words is one way of being able to really feel like you're making progress. Many times we're making decisions before we've even really formulated what exactly we're trying to decide. With a problem laid out in that way, in your own words, you will perhaps, as you read that statement, start to notice these three ways of knowing. Perhaps there may be one: gut, heart, and brain. There may be one of those three that's clearly speaking louder than the other two. That doesn't make it necessarily more important. It just probably makes it that function that you are used to using most frequently. So if you're writing this down and you've found a way of phrasing this decision, I'd like you to write the three words: gut, heart, and brain, or if you like, intellect. And under each, or next to each, just going to capture some of what is making this challenging for you. Now, here's where the mindful awareness comes in, because packaged within the concept of mindfulness is not just awareness. It's paying attention on purpose in this moment and paying attention to your experience in the spirit of non-judgment. Non-judgment, what does that even mean? It essentially comes down to accepting that this is simply how it is for you right now. That is, you may think it's right, it's wrong, it's good, it's bad, it's witty or otherwise. But all of those judgments, those thoughts that tell you whether something is good or bad or right or wrong, add more to this decision than is helpful. They will occur, judgments will happen, but they're unlikely to help you very much. So when they come up, you can pay attention to the fact that these thoughts have popped up, but I want you to just make a little hash mark. You know what that is? A little straight line, little mark at the bottom of that page. And you're just going to, at the end, we're just going to count up, if you can count that high, because I bet there'll be a lot. Count up how many judgments came up and interfered or complicated this decision. And then you don't even have to pay attention really to the content of them. We're just going to call them judgments. Close enough, because you're going to return your attention once again from the judgment, which is a thought process, you might say, to the experience of you being you in this moment, in this body, in this mind that cares very much about something that has to do with this decision. So gut, heart, and brain each have something very important to bring. So even if you can hardly tell what one of those three is advising, suggesting, or otherwise bringing your attention to, we'll try to make contact with this part of your experience in the here and now. Where to begin? Again, gut, heart, brain. You may have your usual go-to, that function of your awareness of your experience that you're either most familiar with most comfortable with, or perhaps that you think is the only part of your awareness you are supposed to consult. So if you have that judgment, just make a little mark there down at the bottom of the page, and we'll come back to what your brain can offer is one, hopefully factual information. And if you're not sure about whether or not it's factual, put a question mark at the end of everything. You're not sure exactly if it's a fact, but you are thinking that. It's information that you think you know, and maybe you do. But let's just say we'll keep an open mind about that. So any information, factual information. So for instance, money, job, gaining weight, losing weight. So you may have some information about the essential central part of this decision. If so, take a moment and just write down the things that come immediately to mind, what you know about this. And that might include what you think you should do. And as you do, take a breath. Take a breath. Notice whether your attention is now caught up in a thinking process, or whether you can still be aware of your body in this moment, your breath in this moment. If you've lost touch with your body or your breath, take a moment. Shift your attention back inward to what you notice about having a body. This is what it feels like to be you right now. And a part of that experience is the breath, which is always coming and going without a whole lot of attention. But when you bring your attention to the breath moving in and out of the body, you may find that it calms you, it settles you, it grounds you. Now you can look back at that list of ideas, beliefs, facts, and just notice what you've written. And if more comes up for you, of course, you can continue this after you and I are done. Now let's move on to the second way of knowing things, the second way of being aware of what matters to you. Now, by the heart, I'm going to refer to the heart in this metaphoric sense. What is emotionally relevant to you? Often it has to do with relationships with other people or other beings, but not necessarily. Some people have a heart connection, an emotional connection to nature, to a certain type of activity. Your emotional self may have something to contribute to this decision. It doesn't have to make the decision for you, but let's see. As you again take a breath, come back into your body, come back into this moment, down out of your head, and check in with your emotional self, how you feel about this decision. And these can be emotions, and they can also be the things that you feel something about. So if you're making a decision about whether or not to accept an invitation somewhere, your emotional self may have a feeling about that. Examples of feelings are various forms of happiness, various forms of sadness or sorrow, various forms of anger, irritability. There's confusion, there's fear, and related states. There's a sense of feeling weakened or made vulnerable. Other emotions or feeling states can be feeling strong, resilient, hopeful. So checking in once again here with breath and body in this moment and looking at that decision that you'd like to make. And appreciate for a moment some of the feelings that you have about that. Some of the ways that you care about that. Now, this third way of knowing is even more subtle, sometimes hard to put into words, because guess what? It doesn't really use language, not in the usual verbal sense that we think of communication as words or language. The gut is very much rooted in the here and now, and it can be influenced by emotional states, can be influenced by history and things you've experienced over time. So the gut is a nonverbal representation of this decision for you. Your gut feeling really sums up, in some ways, what you want, what you're afraid of, what you think could happen, what you've learned from experience has happened, but not in thought and verbal sense. This is in visceral body sense. Some people consider their intuition to be their gut feeling. If that's you, then yes, you're consulting your intuition about this. If your gut feeling seems less decisive than intuition might sound, just again, to write down some of the impressions. And yes, you're writing down words, so you're going to be interpreting, translating that hard to describe feeling in your gut, but do your best. Take a moment now. Breath, body, down out of your head. Sink below the chest. And take in that question of the decision. And then turn your eyes away from the page. Now, turn your eyes away from the words on the page so you can really focus your attention inward. And writing down a couple of the impressions that you had. And noting whether these were intuitions or fears or longing or some other kind of experience. Just notice, what was that feeling saying in its own way? Now, this is a very fast trip through your awareness. And again, these are just 3 ways of many that you can consult, 3 sources of information, 3 sources of feelings, 3 sources of awarenesses, that bringing your attention to them in here and now in the present moment, noticing judgments as simply that, thoughts that you don't need to consider at the moment. Coming back to what you know or think, what you care about in your heart, in your emotional self, and what your instincts, intuitions, or other body-based reactions are to this decision. Now, turn that page over or close that document, because those words will just activate you more right now. And for now, just want you to sit with your full awareness of yourself. That includes all three of these. We're not really compartmentalized into little areas, of course, right? We don't have a brain separated from the heart, separated from the gut. These are interactive ways of knowing, awarenesses. And I'd like to give you a moment to take that in, that you are all of these, and of course more. And that in this moment, being intimate with your experience, intimate with your breath, intimate with your body, intimate with the things that move you, that you care most about. Relaxing now, letting go of having to make any kind of decision or other assessment, and trust that your whole self will make the best decision that you can, given what you know right now, given what you feel and believe to be so, given the information that you can gather, and consulting most deeply what you care about. And how does that speak to this decision? So you being yourself as you actually show up here in this moment, this breath, this body, this awareness of the room around you, this you is wise enough to make the best decision that you can. So in closing, again, I hope you join me again for the part 4 of this 4-part series. And again, my name is Holly Anton. I'm an integrative psychotherapist with Sutter's Institute for Health and Healing in Santa Rosa. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I hope you come to join me again.